Hi, and welcome to this quick tool review. This series is where I introduce new tools to the audience. Let's get started. First up, I have a set of boring bars I acquired. That's these three right here. And at first, they look like sort of normal threading boring bars, but in fact, they're left-handed threading boring bars. So if you were going to do a left-handed thread, these would work in a traditional fashion. They're a mirror image of the right-handed boring bar, and you can tell the difference with the standard nomenclature because this is SNL for left hand, this is SNR for right hand. The 0008 says this is 8 millimeters in diameter, just like this one. So starting with the one you're familiar with, here's a right-handed threading tool. And if you were going to thread something like this guy right here, you would start on the outside, you would go in, thread, then you would come into the middle and back out, and then go in a little bit further and repeat as necessary. Now, if you were trying to thread up to a shoulder or a dead end like this guy has, you are very likely to crash the tool, or it's very easy to crash the tool, especially when you're doing internal because it's very hard to see how deep you actually are. I normally use the DRO to do it, and still it can be very challenging. So if you were going to cut left-handed threads with this tool upright, you could do the same exact thing, except you would start on this side and run the lathe in reverse and cut left-hand threads, come to the middle, come back out, go over, in again, all the way in, back out to the middle. Now, if you want to cut right-hand threads and you want to start on the inside, Joe Piezinski showed a method quite a few years ago. Go check out his channel, great channel. So instead of running the tool cutter upside up, he runs it upside down. But if you notice, with the boring bar and normal cutting tools, that puts the cutter on the wrong side. So that will not work. This would work for a left-handed thread internal using the Piezinski method. By the way, with the Piezinski method, you get to start from the shoulder inside and work your way out. So you never worry about crashing because when you're done, you just end up in free space, which is really nice. So with a left-handed tool, when you flip it upside down, it cuts on the proper side again. And now you can do an upside down cut and start from the inside and cut out. So I picked up 3 of these on eBay, and they were fairly inexpensive. They came with 10 inserts each, decent enough quality that they cut okay threads. No problem there. If you were doing aerospace stuff or something really important, or you had large quantities of parts to do, it probably wouldn't be worth using these. They probably don't have good life expectancy, but I don't thread all that often. I certainly don't do any quantity of parts, so these work out just fine. Check out Joe Piezinski's channel on cutting threads with an upside down tool cutter. You can also do outside threads the exact same way, and you also need, just like this, you need a left-handed tool for the outside threads as well, unless you're using the straight-in kind, like I'll show you in 1 second. All right, so here is a right-handed external threading tool. Shoulder would be over here, and if you're coming in, easy to crash into the shoulder. Here is a left-handed cutter for left-handed threads. Also, could go to the inside. However, if you take this left-handed cutter, flip it upside down, you now have one that's a mirror image, and you can cut threads from the inside out. Again, go right up to a shoulder. This is the kind I was thinking of, but I was mistaken because this holds the cutter vertically, so it's not really left or right-handed orientation, except for the fact that where it's mounted in the tool, rather than being mounted on this side, it's mounted on this side. So if I flip this one upside down, it limits me from coming to the shoulder because I'd run into it here, unless this sticks out enough to come over. And then this would work fine, provided you have enough height range on your lathe to get this tool cutter centered on the center of the diameter of the part, you know, when you're setting center here. So sometimes you don't have enough range if your tool's the wrong size and you flip it over, because you notice they're biased heavily to one side. So next up, we have a true bargain of a find. And this one I'm a little concerned about because the price was so ridiculously low. So this is a Stark USA Elite Silver and Deming drill bit set. Silver and Deming, by the way, is become the style of drill bit, even though there was actual people and a company called Silver and Deming, and that was their last names. And they sold large drill bits like this. Now, just like Kleenex has become synonymous with tissue paper, Silver and Deming has become synonymous with large drill bits. So this set was only $130 or something like that. I forget the exact number, 130, 140. It includes every size of silver and Deming up to an inch in 64th increments in this crappy case. I don't exactly want to call it a nice case, but the bits are cobalt and the quality seems okay. They're very sharp. I guess the ultimate question is what happens when you actually try and use one, but they are very sharp. It's interesting how they did the double relief. I'm looking at the edge here, and if you can see that, oh, they did curve it. Oh, this is a curved grind rather than the way I would do it on the grinder, because I can't do the curved grind easily. They have a flat. I would do a flat and then I'd have another relief going back. They do a continuous curve, which is pretty nice. So the drill bit set is an amazing deal, and it comes in this case that at least can hold the items. I don't know how I feel about this case. It doesn't stick together. It's, you know, it uses foam in the bottom, so the bits waggle all over the place. So it's not the greatest fit that way, but it is an amazingly inexpensive deal to get all of these drill bits for 129 bucks. You could pay nearly that amount for a single drill bit in the larger sizes. All right, so if you look at the grind here, it looks kind of raggedy. I don't know if you can see that, kind of chipped. This side's pretty good. I wonder what happened to them over here. Yeah, that's not so great. Looks like they chipped out. So maybe they made this too hard and it's chipping. Let's look at another couple bits, see if we can find out. I'll let you know more as I use these. I'm sure if you were cutting any quantity of difficult material like stainless, these would just fold immediately. Yeah, this one's okay. No, this one's got one raggedy edge too. One smooth edge, one raggedy edge. I wonder what caused that. Maybe their machine was screwed up on one side. There's even a little burr under that lip. Huh. Okay, so that'll let you know what you'll see this set. Adam Booth over at A-Bomb 79 picked up a set of these. I don't know if these exact same ones, but when I saw that, I thought I'd try them out as well. The quality is definitely mediocre, but it may get you through in a tough spot when you have to drill a hole and you don't have time to bore it. So weigh that with your free spending money and see if it's worth it to you. Next up, we have an unusual tool that came with a lot of tools I bought. I've never seen this like this before, but it's kind of creative, so I thought I'd share it. It is a tube end deburring cutter. So if you look at this up here, it deburrs the inside and outside of a very specific tubing size and has a replaceable center part, which is kind of interesting. They're saying it's ED tube on here. There's the company. I think the way it works is you just come straight in with a drill motor or some other motor and run the tubing into it, and it'll deburr the inside and outside, provided they're within the range of this tool. Never seen one like that before, so I thought I'd share it. Kind of a neat tool. Next up, we have a continuation of the leather project. Remember I said buying some very thin pieces of leather and thick pieces of leather could be really handy around the garage. Well, when you get them, if they come like this, I bought these off eBay, they're raw leather or raw processed leather, and they're fairly stiff. This is thin, but it's still, you know, kind of stiff and not terribly flexible. So the way to fix that is to use neat's foot oil. I mean, you could use standard oil as well. Neat's foot oil is traditional. I was taught to use this with saddles and baseball gloves when I was a kid. So we're going to try that next. If I remember right, as a kid, this stuff smelled pretty good. I thought so anyways. My dad got me a baseball glove when I was a pretty young kid, and it was brand new, so it needed to be broken in. And one way to quickly break it in, make the leather soft and pliable, was to use neat's foot oil. I'm going to transfer it to this container where it'll be easier to squeeze out. And when I seal it up, when I'm done, I'm just going to put some 2 layers of saran wrap over it and tighten the lid down, especially since the lid that came with this one was broken on delivery, so that way it won't leak. So this container here fits 16 ounces to that line. This is supposedly 16 ounces. I guess they're kind of generous, huh? Well, that was a bit much, I think. Now I've just gone and made a mess. That's typical me. Although this stuff really does soak in pretty well, but that was definitely too much. Although I've noticed it's already continued to soak in. It's soaking in more as we speak because it had a lot of fluid on the surface and it's gone. But you notice now it's already getting a lot more pliable. Especially this one. I used some of this over on my milling vise with the adapter that Utril made that holds, he had a piece of naga hide on the back, but the hot chips started burning and melting into the naga hide. So I thought I'd try this solution instead. And so I've got a piece of this thin leather on the back and it's working great so far. This stuff just, if it's a really hot chip, just burns a little bit, but it doesn't melt. When it melts, the chips were sticking, so it was becoming a problem. But anyways, if you want to pull out a milling cutter out of the mill, you can use a piece of leather like this, holding other sharp tools, putting it in the jaws of your vise to protect a part from marring. It's got all kinds of uses. So you can buy it like I showed last time in a pack of like 4, 4, or 8 pieces, and pretty handy to have around, so I recommend it. Next up, we have an interesting measuring tool I ran across a while back, and they're very expensive, so I've kind of been holding off getting one. Stuff called pie tape, and it's used for measuring the diameter by going around the circumference of round parts, and it's a really neat design. So basically the diameter, well, the circumference is pi times d, so if you go around the circumference and divide by pi, you're left with d. That's what this tape does. It's basically all the numbers are divided by pi. And the amazing thing about it is it has a vernier scale on it as well, right here, that lets you get down to, well, 1/1000th potentially of accuracy. So here is a round object I want to know the diameter of. Now, this pie tape, they come in sizes really, really big. They go up 40 inches or more. And you know that you're not going to find calipers that big. Heck, even regular calipers, trying to measure this guy, you're going over the top because the jaws aren't long enough to reach in. You need a bigger set of calipers with longer jaws. So they have an offset portion here where the one tape will lie over the next one, and you line them up. And as you can see, hopefully if the glare is not too bad, the 0 is between 3.9 and 4, and it is 3.975, but it's between 3.975 and 4, if you can see that. And so we come over here to the vernier scale and find out which one lines up, and it's about the 15. So 3.975 plus 15 is 3.990. I came out with my calipers 3.89, and I had to come in at an angle. So that is a pretty cool measuring device. Again, this one is a very, very small pie tape. This one only goes to 7 inches. It does 3/4 to 7. And like I said, they make them, and they get larger and larger. I've seen at least 48 inches, if not more. And you can measure something to 1/1000th of an inch and get the diameter, which would not be easy if you had something 4 feet across. No caliper, no normal caliper in the world is going to be able to measure across that. You'd be hard time finding a micrometer that could measure that. This is a pretty cool tool to have, and I bought it because it's just so unique and brilliant in design. So there it is, pie tape. Check it out on eBay. Small ones like this go for like 50 bucks, and they go up to way over that, and this is used. Next up, we have a tool that I got from my mill. I have resisted coolant for a long time. I made my own misting system, but it works off and on. It's okay. I ran across this deal on eBay where this was a new in-box, unused, but very old stock Trico micro drop misting machine. So you can tell it's a bit old because the plastic's starting to yellow and stiffen up a little bit. Comes with 2 magnetic spray dispensers with very fine tips. Now what this one's supposedly famous for is that it uses mist coolant 1 drop at a time. So you're using like a drop every second or two, as opposed to a continuous stream or a big pool of coolant. So supposedly this does not have the same fogging issues in the shop that some mist coolants do. I figured I'd give it a shot because it was at a really good price. So to give you an idea of how much fluid this thing dispenses, down here you are 2 drops per minute. And over here, maxed out, you're just a little bit over 16 drops per minute. They have their own proprietary solution, although I bet you can use other ones. This is the vegetable NDF lubricant. I have a larger container. I don't remember if you, I guess you, oh, you do not dilute this one. Has a very small fluid holder because you're doing it 1 drop at a time, so you don't need to use very much. And it has 2 dispensers, so you can come from multiple angles and get your cutter optimally coolant coated. So we're gonna set this up on the mill and try and use it at some point in the near future. I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, I will let you know more as I have experience with using it since I just got it. The model is MD1200, Trico manufacturing. It is still a currently sold item. This one, like I said, is a new old stock. I think this is an on-off switch. This must be pneumatic because there's no power on this guy. So it must be pneumatic off and on. And here is your input air over here. So you need to have air available in the mill. I don't think the requirements are, oh yeah, the requirements are not tough at all. 1.7 cubic feet a minute at 80 PSI when you're actively using it. So small compressors will still be able to feed this. I know home shop people, having something at like 20 cubic feet a minute becomes an immediate problem for you and absolutely not sustainable. Things like sandblasters, which are like 12 and up cubic feet a minute, can be really challenging to use on a normal compressor. It'll stay on not and stop and the pressure will drop. So anyways, this is not that. This fortunately uses just a tiny amount of air on a relative basis, so any compressor should be able to keep up. Oh, in case you're wondering, the build quality, this is all plastic except for the mount here, which is metal. And it looks like you just drill 2 screws or mount 2 screws, tap and thread, and mount this guy up. The controls feel relatively solid, which is nice. Oh, and you've got air control too, which this is obviously a mechanical valve. That's very interesting. Multi-turn? Bizarre. Okay. Probably needle valves, I'm guessing, if you open this guy up. Heck, why don't we? Okay, to pop this guy open, it's just 2 screws on top, 2 on bottom, and the back pops out. And this back is purely a mounting decorative piece. You could build a custom mount and mount this guy right on your mill or lathe, wherever you're going to use it. So lots of confusing tubing, although it should be fairly straightforward. Oh, these double sticky things have popped off. Like I said, this is new used or new unused, but old. So sitting in a box. So I was right. This is a pneumatic switch here. And there's some needle valve. There's a needle valve inside here that could be a sub pressure adjust, I guess, if you needed to. Here's your main input going into the switch. The output of these guys go to these needle valves here, which control your airflow, and then out of the airflow goes out. And then there's little small sub pressure outputs that go into the coolant tank to allow you to push the liquid out, I'm guessing, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, and this hose is broken. I'm glad I opened this up. So this wouldn't have worked. So the hose that pressurizes this guy here to force liquid out is broken off. So that wouldn't work very well. So I'm gonna have to replace that. That's really interesting. Actually, there might be enough slack because it goes on a brass valve, on a brass part there. I can just push it on, I think. So that was useful to find out. Pretty straightforward device though. The mist comes out of here and then goes through the metering valves and out to the devices. And there's some sort of air assist here that controls the amount of pressure that goes out of the final output. These big knobs go to these valves right here. Those are unusual valves. They feel really solid though. Interesting. So I'm going to fix this guy because this tubing is really stiff and has broken. I need more of this. That is tiny tubing too. Next up was a pair of really cool finds. This Mitutoyo electronic indicator interface. This was brand new, never used, but old stock, so it's a couple generations old, but still compatible with current indicators Mitutoyo sells. And a used indicator that is in really good shape here, electronic indicator. They come with a variety of tips with different ball diameters. And it'll let me get down to 5 millionths of an inch per division, which means you probably could pick 1 or 2 millionths of an inch if you needed to. I don't know that anything I do, I'm going to be able to be that accurate myself, but it's kind of exciting to try. So I look forward to using this guy. This will live over my surface plate. I think I'm going to make some custom stand for it so that it can be off the surface plate to give me maximum real estate. And this guy mounts either by standard dovetail or screw mount, and I can use either. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, this is the least expensive. There are 3 models in this series, so this is the single one with a single adjustment. The next model up adds differential, and the model above that adds the ability to set a limit so you can know when you're above and below the limit if you're trying to do repeat measurements. So this is the simplest version, just has positive or negative, which lets you flip this. That's the gain or linearity adjust, I believe. You have an analog out and an input. This is compatible with all of their current model indicators, so the fact that these old ones are very hard to get a hold of, like these plunger style or the lever style like the one I got, you can use the current models as well. They're completely compatible. It's nice that Mitutoyo decided to keep that same going forward. That'll be it for this episode of Quick Tool Review. Thanks for watching. Hope you find it useful. Hope to see you next time.